Notes available, but it's best if you take your own. Okay. Are we all set, Stephen? Or is the red light is on?
We're streaming live.
We're streaming live. Hopefully, how long have we been going?
60 minutes.
No, how long have we been going?
Oh, we just started.
We just started, okay. All right. We're going to do a lot of acronyms today to sort of help you, try to give you some mnemonic devices. Our subject here is clones for
Conservative. Liberalism.
okay? So if you want to talk about the clone wars between the different ideologies, you're welcome to remember it that way. But before we get into that, we're going to try to make some peace. You did read this before, but I do want to go over it just to try to confirm a couple of points. We will try to keep this brief. The peace settlement is known as the Congress of Vienna. It meets in 1815. There actually will be kind of two versions, the Congress of Vienna before Napoleon escapes from Elba, and then it's going to reconvene afterwards. The treatment of France will be a little bit different. The Quadruple Alliance is formed at the end of the Napoleonic Wars. It is the last coalition aimed at defeating Napoleon. One of the terms of this is an alliance that is going to last longer than the war. Okay, the Allies promise to hang together. They promised not to make a separate peace with France. One of the things that Napoleon had been very successful about was fighting wars where he would defeat his enemies separately and make separate peaces. And so rarely did he have to fight more than two countries at the same time. The Quadruple Alliance obviously begins following the disaster for Napoleon in Russia, and then gradually Prussia joins in, Austria joins in, Britain has been in there all along. And they agreed to remain an alliance for 20 years, not only to win the war, but also to enforce the peace. So that's known as the Quadruple Alliance. The four members, Britain, Austria, Russia, and Prussia. Okay, not that you want to barter or anything. The ministers who represent them, Castlereagh is the British Prime Minister, Metternich is the Austrian Foreign Minister, Alexander I is the Tsar of Russia, and I can never remember the Prussian guy's name, okay, and he rarely comes up, so if anybody wants to get extra credit and look that up, you can, but not really critical, okay? Now, the goals for this peace, and again, I've got our map up here that is going to show these changes. What are these goals and why? And again, these are pretty common for most peace treaties. Max?
To restore the balance of power.
Okay, and if I stand over here, I think I'm out of the picture, so how about if we will try this. All right, they want to restore the balance of power. Hopefully that will pick it up. Okay.
Maintain, create nations that sort of encircle France that can act as a buffer zone between.
Okay, so to contain France on the continent, that will be part of maintaining peace. What else do you try to do with a peace agreement?
Make friends.
Make friends?
Try to recover from the war, take what you deserve after the losses. So.
Okay, reward the winners.
Yes.
What else would be the flip side of that? Punish the losers. Okay. Now, in the Congress of Vienna, what is kind of unique about that element?
That they don't want to punish France so much that they take on another Napoleon and try and do the same thing again.
Okay. The peace that is imposed on France is not a very harsh one. In fact, France is rewarded. They are allowed to keep the land that they took up until 1792. Why is that?
They don't want to anger them and have France want revenge. You know.
Okay, but why not put them back to the borders of 1789, which were smaller than those in 1792? It's related to not angering them, absolutely, but why pick 1792? What happens in that year?
So they switch governments to a public.
From a republic to a monarchy. Right.
From this constitutional.
From a monarchy to a republic in the Second Revolution. France is permitted to retain any land it took while it was still a monarchy. Because what sort of government will be restored? They're going to restore the monarchy to France. They also are going to, a whole pattern of this peace agreement is to restore what they call legitimate governments. Okay? Now, Napoleon had established a lot of monarchies, but they were monarchies of his family. Okay, his brothers and relatives, brothers-in-law. They want to restore legitimate government. And an example of this, which is kind of interesting, is the Netherlands. They create this combined Kingdom of the Netherlands, putting together the United Netherlands and the Austrian Netherlands, which actually for Austria, they're delighted to get rid of this headache, because it always had been sort of a provocation for war with France. France had always wanted it. But they turned this into a kingdom. Now, what have the United Provinces always been from its time it first created the Union of Utrecht? It had been a republic, but there's this push to go back to have monarchies. Okay, that's part of the bias of the Congress of Vienna. How long will that union last?
Until 1836.
Till 1830, when Belgium will revolt, gain its independence. Okay, so it's only going to last about 15 years, right? But that is part of it. So we want to reward the winners, we want to punish the losers, we want to make peace, we also want to, in any peace agreement, at least ideally, what else do you want to do? Maintain the peace or prevent future wars. Okay, and those are often different. And this is where the punishing the losers and preventing war in the future is balanced out. And you guys have picked that up. They're not going to punish France a lot, in part to try to maintain the peace or prevent war down the road. And they're also going to want to suppress revolution. Okay, the ideas, the ideologies that are associated with the French Revolution, they see that as causing war. And what are those ideologies? Those isms that are associated with the French Revolution? Liberalism, nationalism, radicalism, Jacobinism, okay, which during the Reign of Terror had adopted some nascent socialism. Mayana, you want to?
No.
And these ideas are associated with what time period, besides the Revolution time period? Yeah. Okay, so we have a reaction against the Enlightenment and the consequences of the Enlightenment. Internationally, the great powers, which really dominate the Congress of Vienna. You have, lots and lots of states there, but the great powers are really going to dominate it. They're going to establish what's known as the Congress system. Does anybody remember or recall what that means, what that is referring to? What is a Congress?
Is it like a representative body of the nations?
Okay, and literally Congress is a coming together.
It's kind of like an early UN.
Exactly. Dominated by the great power. It's a very elitist United Nations. The Congress system is a way to, when crises arise, for the powers to get together to discuss them and try to resolve them peacefully, and not resort to war. And so initially there is a plan for the powers to get together every 3 or 4 years on a regular basis. They will do that for a little while. They also will then get together if there are any crises that arise. This Congress system will last for the first half of the century. It will be disrupted by the revolutions of 1848, but as we'll see, there will be some further Congresses in the second half of the 18th century, particularly when issues over imperialism, as Europe starts to especially go into Africa, but also moving into, as the Ottoman Empire weakens and the risk of war increases in the Balkans, there will be Congresses called to try to work things out, to try to resolve things short of a European-wide war. This also comes to sometimes be called the concert of Europe, the working together, harmoniously perhaps, making beautiful music together, okay, but the concert of Europe, okay, to manage. And in general, and as it turns out, this is going to be fairly successful. There will be 100 years without any European-wide wars. Okay, we'll have a few smaller ones as we see. Internationally, part of this Congress system is to intervene, to prevent revolutions or liberal or radical